Come blast off in my time machine. Third eye feeling like an Visine. Blast off, blast off, blast off, blast off. Come blast off in my time machine. Third eye feeling like an Visine. Blast off, blast off, blast off, blast off.
Hello. This is Ryan Burns, the host of the Hyper Anomalous Esoteric Research Organization podcast, known to most of you as Hero Paranormal Podcast. If you haven't been by our social media pages, please check them out. Also, go to heroparanormal.com, and there you can access pretty much everything. We have archives accessible there through our podcast/donate button. You can also become a patron with that same button. We try to make it easy. Don't be scared of the button. It's your friend. You'll get up-to-date, awesome researchers as quickly and financially able as I am. And it's hard sometimes to get the time to do it, but I sincerely do my best. So as soon as I'm financially and have the time available, which I think is also kind of a finance minor, time is money, go there, check it out. If you want to check Hero Paranormal out on the go to heroparanormal.podbean.com, and you can get all of our archives there, both free and patron. And our patron system is quite unique. No matter what you want to put down a month, you can do, and you will become a patron. It's like that. If there's a cheaper deal out there, let me know. Don't think there is. So, I will continue to navigate these strange and murky waters of the paranormal, the cryptozoological, secret societies, and everything else that is fringe in our culture, and bring you the best heroes of those fields I can. It's hard to track them down and get them on the air, but that's part of it too. So as long as you guys don't let me down, I won't let you down. So enough selfless, shameless promotion. Check out heroparanormal.com. Pilots are seeing UFOs. Farmers are seeing lights in the sky. Ancient peoples have eternally documented their sightings with divine celestials on rock walls, caves, and glyphs, which haunt us like reminders of their experiences. Whether it be petroglyphs, pictographs, or ancient artifacts, the reminders are there. Some claim there's no connection. Others of us believe there is a connection. The ancients were our ancestors, and we have some of their DNA within us. They weren't the savage, stupid, tribal morons some would have you believe. It is my belief they may have known more in certain aspects and may have had much deeper connections to the mysteries that baffle modern man. Never underestimate the seeds from which modern man was cultivated. Arizona rock art is among the most telling and beautiful in the world. Vortexes, extraterrestrials, and even craft that boggle the imagination are depicted. Today we speak with an Arizona expert. His name is Jeff Woolwine. He has over 15 years experience researching, hiking around the valleys of Arizona and filming UFOs. He's an actual petroglyph guide and an author of The Phoenix Lights, Petroglyphs in the Sky, Landscape for the Spirits. The true stories, myths, legends, and UFOs over Arizona. Jeff is a leading UFO investigator in Arizona, former World UFO Day ambassador, and former Ancient Aliens TV host for Tucson, and South Mountain tour guide and UFO hunter. So, with no further ado, Mr. Jeff Woolwine, welcome to the Hero Paranormal Podcast.
Hey, how you doing?
Doing great. Thanks so much for coming on the show today. I'm very interested in everything Arizona, and this. I love how you've coined a lot of terms that I think are very true. Petroglyphs in the sky, landscape for the spirits. I think that there's a lot there. And I wanted to know a little bit of background, how you came to kind of like carve this niche out, which I think is an exact correlation of like what ancients were seeing and what we are seeing in the skies.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up. I appreciate you having me on. It's interesting too. I guess we could start off with the beginning of it all. I guess you can say the 1997 Phoenix Lights that occurred on the west side of Phoenix, Arizona, and there it just kind of took off. It took off from there. It's interesting. These lights have been going on way before 1997. Matter of fact, these lights have been going on since the beginning of time, especially in the mountains around the Valley of the Sun. These things actually, I'm going to tell you, there's going to be a lot of things here that a lot of people don't realize yet that I've discovered. And one of them is, a lot of people think, well, they're from another planet. Well, in fact, studying the petroglyphs, studying the rock art, studying the so-called myths and legends of Phoenix, Arizona, and watching them, seeing them firsthand and understanding the petroglyphs and the stories that it tells, it explains that these things that we see in the skies are not from another planet, but this is their world also. Mother Earth is their planet, and they have always been here. One of my sayings is, just as the oceanographers are finding new species of life below the ocean floor, this is a new species of life above the ocean that the scientists and many that, are in this field fail to recognize is true. But yet we are seeing things in the sky, and, it has everything to do with the carvings on the mountains, not only in Phoenix, Arizona, but anywhere around the world that we find spirals representing doorways for these spirits. Now, you know that if you notice, I haven't said anything about a craft yet.
Mm-hmm.
It's very possible. I mean, because the scientists, when you look at it, the scientists, have said that they've already found 7 Earth-like planets outside our solar system. And sure, what's to say that, another advanced civilization could reside on these planets and they've built some sort of craft and they have been visiting Earth. Sure, I'm open to that. But I think what the majority of what the public is seeing out here, recording, are living entities. These are not spaceships. These are not little gray guys in a spaceship. Each light, you see 5 lights out there, you're looking at 5 living entities, 5. The light is the being itself. And, it's interesting, too, because, there were skywatchers ready for these lights March 13th, 1997. Okay, this is the reason why we have footage of what really happened that night. Mm-hmm. Okay, we have footage of the lights on the west side of South Mountain. And it's because of one gentleman by the name of Tom King. Now, there's been reports, and the story has been spread, the rumors have been spread, that a craft went over Arizona and flew over Phoenix. Okay, but yet it's been over 20 years now. 20 years, and not one video has come forward on this information, on this so-called craft going over Phoenix. I have been investigating the Phoenix Lights for over 20 years now. I am one of the most credible researchers here in Phoenix, Arizona, and in the ufology world when it comes to the Phoenix Lights. And I can tell you, I've looked at all the angles to this, and I can't find one shred of evidence, proof, that a craft went over Phoenix. Okay, so you have to really look at this, okay? So if hundreds or even thousands of people have witnessed a craft or something going over Phoenix, Arizona, and how come we haven't seen any videos of them? What we do see are lights on the west side of Phoenix, Arizona, just doing a spread, just in a formation, not going over the city of Phoenix, but sitting in a formation of an arc, not a V, but an arc between the South Mountains and the Australia Mountains. And it's interesting, the Australia means Star Mountain. Okay, so we find these lights. It's an energy spot. It's a hot spot. Mm-hmm. It's been a hot spot throughout time here in Phoenix, Arizona, and also and you really have to ask yourself, well, how come? Why are the lights drawn to these mountains here? Why are these entities drawn to these mountains here? It's because these mountains around the Valley of the Sun were made by fault lines, and fault lines generate energy. And it has everything to do with the sun and the fault lines on the earth. The way the sun moves across the sky, moves around the earth, and follows the fault lines, so do these things in the sky. They follow the energy pattern. And this is one way to predict, to understand how to see these things is to follow the seasons. To follow the seasons, to track the sun. The Holcomb, we'll get into that here in a minute. The Holcomb were sun watchers, okay? And they understood things in the sky. They were waiting for these gods, if you will, to be in their presence, to be aware of them. You know, out here on South Mountain, I've found many tombs. We'll go into that here a little bit later. And lots of sacrificing altars. Much as we find in Mexico, is the same thing here in Phoenix, Arizona. As a matter of fact, the Mayans were here in Phoenix, Arizona also. So we're gonna go into a lot of deep stuff that I have discovered that I can prove, not hearsay, mind you, but proven facts from documents that I've uncovered in a public Phoenix library downtown Phoenix to the petroglyphs and the tombs that I discovered on South Mountain and documented and photographed and placed in my book. I mean, there's so much information, there's so much stuff that hasn't been told in the last 80 years of Phoenix, Arizona, of the history of Phoenix, Arizona, that includes the Phoenix lights and these things that we see in the sky today.
Mm-hmm. Man, I love where you're going with this, because I know that nobody knows Arizona in the ways, whether emotionally, spiritually, and otherwise, that you do. You've been hiking the mountains. You've been like, man, you dated us. Like, I can't believe the Phoenix Lights are 20 years ago. Like, that's crazy. I feel so old. 1997 doesn't sound that like old to me, but it's like on the west side of Phoenix, that arc that you mentioned, not a triangle, that arc between South Mountain and the Australia Mountains, the mountains kind of are around the Valley of the Sun. And I'm really glad that you mentioned that. And I know that a lot of people probably were like, wow, you know, what do you mean people were like waiting around for this? And it's like, in a way, they probably were, because you understand the petroglyphs better than anyone I know. And the things in the sky, the things in the water, they call them UFOs, USOs. There's all kinds of crazy scenarios. But I love that you are kind of shying away from this nuts and bolts. The nuts and bolts theories just don't add up. Can you go into that
correct.
A bit?
Absolutely, that's correct. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but yeah, you're spot on. You're totally correct.
Yeah, the nuts and bolts theories just don't add up. And I love that you're, following the energy. People say follow the money. Well, you're following the fault lines, generating the energy. And these spirals that follow the seasons. And I love that you said gods, and then you're like, oh, wait. But it's true. It is true. When you look back and you talk about these, we and anyone talks about these indigenous people that were literally seeing things in the sky. these were, for all intents and purposes, gods, because they were not like us. And, they were sun watchers. And, the west side of Sun Mountain that you mentioned, this is a big deal. And these may very well be, like you said, these are entities. And I spoke recently with somebody nearby Arizona. He was in New Mexico, Norio Hayakawa, and he referred to them as paraphysical entities. And I love that, because I do believe that they are in fact alive in some way, shape, or form. And these spirals, man, I'm hitting you from all directions, but I love where you're going. The spirals. We'll get to that. But getting back to the importance of these not necessarily being triangles in the skies, more like arcs, and not being nuts and bolts, more like biological entities or things that are maybe not alive the way we are, but they're still alive. Could you go into that a bit?
In 2004, I was born and raised here in Phoenix, Arizona. I'm a Phoenix native, and I was outside that night during the 1997 Phoenix Life event, and I can honestly say, I wasn't witness. There wasn't anything that flew over Phoenix that night. Only people that are out, to make a profit off this, and I think this is really sad. It's really sad that people are trying to exploit these lights, not trying to figure out what exactly is going on. And that's the whole point to my research, is to find out exactly what was going on here. So, I remember seeing this, what really started me on this path. I mean, I was seeing things in the sky, way before I connected the petroglyphs, and so it made me want to go out and try to figure out what these things are. And so I started studying everything I could about these things in the sky. And so I remember sitting in Phoenix in 2004, and the news helicopter, they got a string of lights again on the west side of Phoenix. Now, if you remember, I mentioned about Tom King, UFO skywatcher out here in Phoenix, Arizona, and he was filming the lights out here on a regular basis. And this is what I can honestly tell you, because there were skywatchers March 13th, 1997, that were ready for these lights. And if anything would have flew over Phoenix, they would have videotaped it. They would have caught it on film. But yet nothing of the sort actually occurred to this matter. But what actually happened was lights on the west side. But I remember, years back, because he was tracing these lights, he was filming these lights, years ago. And I remember he was in the east side of South Mountain, filming the lights out there. So in the summer of 2004, the news helicopters out here in Phoenix, they captured some lights on the west. But I kind of had a feeling I should go to the east side, because that's where Tom was at, mostly. He got the lights right there in front of him March 13th on the west side, but he actually lived on the east side. So he was it was great that he was there at the right place at the right time, March 13th, to actually videotape what had happened. And so in 2004, I decided to go to the east side. The news captured him. I knew the lights were here, and so I was going to hunt him down. So I moved out there to Mesa. That's on the east side of Phoenix, Arizona. And so every night I would just sit out there, and I kind of knew the direction to look, and towards, the south west. I kind of was looking out in that direction because that's where Tom was filming them at. So I was kind of watching these things. And lo and behold, I had two orange amber lights kind of appear a few miles in front of me, and they were going west. They were going towards South Mountain. As soon as they would reach South Mountain, they would disappear. And then two more orange amber lights would appear in front of me and head towards the mountain and then disappear. Well, this went on like 3 or 4 times, and that was the very first time I actually got something like that on film. And then so I went up, my son and I, we went out there and we waited for the next couple of nights and we didn't see anything. So my conclusion was, you know what, let's follow the lights. Let's see where they're going. They're going west, dude. They want me to follow them, you know? So I ended up finding Mesa Community College, and I climbed up on this set of bleachers where the football games, you know, occur at. And so I went up on their bleachers and I could see the whole city. I could see the whole skylight there. And so the whole summer I sat right there on top of those bleachers watching the skies, and lo and behold, those lights would appear right in front of us, a few miles in front of us, on the east side of South Mountain. That pretty much the whole summer of 2004. I was getting lightning bolt formations. I was getting like triangle formation. I was getting dots in the sky that were a mile along. I mean, it was crazy. Every night, my son and I and my friends would go out there and we'd set up our tripods and our cameras and we'd watch these lights hovering over the same spot. Okay, so I never saw them again on the east side. You know, where I first saw them at. You know, I never saw them, you know, way over there. I actually followed them. They wanted me to follow them, and I did. And I sat there all summer, and I watched these lights hovering, appearing over this major power plant. There's an electrical power plant out there that boiled down into the fault line. And I remember, you know, seeing these lights over the Palo Verde nuclear power plant. I was seeing photographs years ago. And I remember just before I went out there, I saw something on the news that they were going to shut down some of this Palo Verde nuclear power plant and turn on the electrical power plant for the summer of 2004. And when they did, it attracted these lights to these power plants, to the spotlight on South Mountain. Well, about a year later, investigating the whole comm and some of the ancient structures, some of the old ruins that were out there at one time, I came across this old map that hasn't been seen in 80 years, and it shows that the Holcomb used to live right there where that power plant used to be, or right there where that power plant stands today. So the Holcomb used to live right there at that energy spot. This is the reason why they lived on the mountains, and they lived close to these things. And wherever these things would appear in the sky or would come out of the ground, they would live there. They would make their hogans, and they would make their cities in spots around the valley on where these things would come and go from. And when they get as close as they could to their God. And so in 2004, I'm videotaping these lights, you know, and I'm like, hey, you know, I'm calling the news, dude. I'm calling the news. And I'm like, hey, is anybody else seeing these lights? You know, I said, I've got a whole bunch of video of these things, man. Well, it took them a few weeks to get a hold of me. And in 2004, I ended up doing about 4 or 5 news reports that summer. And you know, I'm still thinking, hey, where are the crafts at? Where's this craft everybody's reported, right? You know, where are these crafts at? Dude, I'm not seeing any crafts. I'm seeing lights, dude. I'm seeing lights and formation. I'm not seeing any crafts, you know. And so the end result of the news report is that everybody was seeing flares 150 miles away in Tucson at Davis-Monthan Air Force Base, and that's crazy, dude, because you can clearly tell that these lights are in the city and they're over people's houses, and it's next to South Mountain. I mean, come on, dude, right? Mm-hmm. So prior to this, I remember watching this Native American shaman who works over there at the Pueblo Indian Art Museum in Phoenix, Arizona. I saw him on television, and he's doing a tour. He's doing a tour on South Mountain, and he's showing some stick-figure guys there. You know, he's showing the rock art carvings there. And one of the guys says, hey, you know, it looks like that this guy is looking up at something in the sky. And Dave automatically, the shaman turned around and said, yes, this is part of the interpretations out here, is that our ancestors saw and recorded things in the sky. And I'm like, wait a minute, I'm hold the phone here. A light bulb went over my head. I was like, dude, we have strange lights in the sky. Now we have strange markings on the rocks out here. There has to be a connection. So in 2005, after the flare incident was over with, after that was seeing, they're trying to say I'm seeing flares. I'm like, dude, that's impossible, because all the information that I'm gathering here, it seemed like mountains were the source. Mountains were the hot spots to see these sightings at. I'm doing my investigations. I'm reading up on stories on some of the ancestors here, and it always came down to mountains. I'm like, dude, I saw these things heading towards South Mountain. I saw these things right there next to South Mountain. Well, how about in 2005, I moved to South Mountain, and I watch and see what I can get during the day. So that's exactly what I did. I went out to the east side of South Mountain, and I sat there for almost 3 years. And doing so, I witnessed a lot of crazy things coming and going from that mountain. And I can tell you, it wasn't spaceships. It wasn't craft. Okay? And so I called up Dave, and I was like, you know what? I saw you on television. You're talking about the petroglyphs. Can you go up there and can you show me the glyphs and talk about, some of the interpretations out here? So he agreed, and we went out there and spent a couple hours out there on South Mountain, and he talked about the spirals. He talked about the lizard people. He talked about the giants. All right, he talked about this whole kind of crazy stuff, right? And he's telling me that these spirals represent doorways, and when it's carved on the rocks here, that sometimes when the spirals end down, it's talking about the cracks, the crevices in the boulders, in the stone, that are the doorways for the underworld, to the underworld. All right, so I'm thinking to myself, how can a big spaceship, right? I'm thinking crafts, dude. How can a big spaceship get in a little crack like that, right? Until I finally understood that it's not crafts that we're dealing with here. It is spirits, the Native Americans like to call them. It is entities, living beings, okay? And I have seen these things coming and going from South Mountain, going within the mountain, coming out of the mountain, ascending down on the mountain. And I understand why they call these things spirits. It's because when they're high in the sky and when they're starting to come down to go into the door, to go into the vortex door there, they're solid. They're shape-shifting. They're changing colors. And as they get closer to the mountain, then all of a sudden you can kind of see through them. They're like a ghost, right? They're like a spirit. And then they come down on the mountain, and then they just absorb themselves into the rocks. And then same thing as when they come out. When they come out of the mountain, nothing is there, and all of a sudden something is there. You can kind of see through it. Something's there, something's not there. What the hell is it, right? And then it goes up into the sky, and it becomes more solid, and then it starts to shape-shift. It starts to change colors. It's alive. It's looking at people on the ground. It's looking at me. It's looking at the sky. It's alive, and then it just kind of disappears. It goes on its merry way, Mm-hmm. And so it actually, I follow. I was the first one to discover these entities here in the United States in 2005. And I was the first one to film a flying serpent here in Phoenix, Arizona. Not only Phoenix, but in the United States. And actually what this serpent did is he came out of South Mountain to the valley and went into another mountain on the other side of Phoenix, Arizona. So after I'm, watching these things and I'm making my discoveries, I'm going out there on the mountains and I saw something. I saw this flying serpent, come out of the mountain, right? So I go out to where that spot was, and lo and behold, I find a spiral, and I find a man looking up at a flying snake. All right? No one has ever done this before. No one has ever made the connections, has actually proven that the Native Americans were actually seeing strange things. They were carving strange things on the rock, because up until this point, it It was just a theory. Oh, we think the Native Americans, saw things in the sky and carved it on the rocks. We think this and we think that. But no, over the last 3 years or so, living by South Mountain, I proved it. This is a whole new topic about the Phoenix Lights. So that's why I brought this to the news. I brought my facts, my findings, my evidence, my proof to the news. And lo and behold, they ate it up. And then again, I'm starting doing more news reports. And this was around in 2005. Now, the UFO Hunter Show, an Ancient Aliens TV series, wasn't on television at that time. Matter of fact, Pat Uskert was the concept. He was, him and Bill Burns, the creator of UFO Magazine. After I wrote an article for UFO Magazine in 2005, Pat Uskert decided to come out and actually film me up there on South Mountain. And this actually, and to talk about the petroglyphs, talk about the sky spirits. And this was actually the pilot for the Ancient Alien series and also for the UFO Hunter show on the History Channel. After a few years, after the UFO Hunter show finally aired, because it sat on the Hollywood desk for about 2 years before somebody finally picked it up. But as soon as the UFO Hunter show aired on the History Channel, they came back out with me in 2007, and we went to another mountain on the west side, the White Take Mountains, because I felt that there was better scenery, it's better for the cameras. There's a whole lot of petroglyphs there. And it's talking about the same entities, So I took them up there, and they were telling me, now, Jeff, when you go talking about these things, don't go saying spirit, don't go saying entities, don't go saying angels. He's like, the public is not ready for this. They're like, you know what, you're filming some bizarre stuff, dude, and if you're going to refer to these things, you have to tell them that you're filming crap. And I'm like, dude, that's just crazy because, the public better get ready for this because this is what's really going on here. I have proven this. I've documented this. This is what's really here. And so I ended up doing the show and, I was just talking about, I think we better take a look at these petroglyphs, dude, because it's talking about something else. And this is a whole new subject to the UFO phenomenon. No one has really discovered this yet. And then, it really started here within 7 to 10 years later. People are emailing me, dude, I saw you on TV. I saw you on the History Channel. You're talking about flying snakes. You're talking about the Phoenix Lights and the carvings. Hey, I saw a flying snake the other day. Boom! I started all of this. I was the original source to these entities phenomenon discovery. And matter of fact, there's a lot of discovery sources that the public just isn't aware of yet, and it's taken some of these so-called UFO experts to admit that what I've discovered is true, but they're finally getting there. They're finally catching up to my work. I'm so far ahead of all these other people, dude. It's really frustrating because, you've done your homework. You found out exactly what's really going on, but now you got to wait. You got to sit back and wait for the public and for these other people to catch up to your work. But eventually they will, and I'm here to tell you, I am the source of many discoveries in this UFO field, and you can search my name on the internet. You can search petroglyphs in the sky on the internet. And you can see all of this crazy stuff I've been saying way since 2005. I've been saying this, and now some of these UFO experts are just now agreeing with my findings, and it's been 17 years later or so, 16 years later. It's like, man, so it's been a fun ride, but it's also been a frustrating ride, because you're like, dude, you've discovered something completely new, and now you have to wait until everybody, catches up, and, but, it's there, and it's true.
You know what? You're right. And you're right on so many levels. I love that Pat and Bill, I love Pat Uskert and Bill Burns. I love that they said the public wasn't ready for this because, like you said, this is exploitation. It's not the answer. Many are finding that out, but I think there's just too much money to be made in between. And I agree with you that these entities are following the observers. We are the key to that display. And Jeff, like much like I always think of like dolphins who like jump and perform alongside boats, and people are like, why do they do that? Why do they do that? And it's like, they're beautiful creatures. This is what they do. This is like, and I love that you went into the flying serpent, because a flying serpent, as you know, the snake worship, these are big deals. That's a whole other topic. But I also wanted to ask you about following the Hokum, where they lived. You would follow where they, these may very well be gods with a small g. A lot of people use that. Or I like to sometimes say with a big G, depending on your viewpoints, depending on what you're in contact with and how often, because these are part of this whole display. And it sounds so familiar to some of the things we see in Utah, like the spirals. And I'm in Nevada now, but I go back every month to Utah and do research. And like these spirals you're talking about, you're absolutely right. They're just so perfect. And they seem to also be another key. And I wanted to ask you before I forget, the connection to the Mayans, because that is, that's just mind-boggling, and I would love to hear about that.
Well, doing up there on South Mountain, I'm an amateur archaeologist, and I can spot something, man-made or out of place, a mile away. I'm very good at what I do. This is how I was able to discover, most of the tombs out here on South Mountain and some of the altars out here. And, I'm seeing, like, I'm getting familiar with the carvings from the Hohokam, and so let's talk about the Hohokam just real briefly. Hohokam is a Pima word for the people who are gone, the people who got taken away, the people who are missing, because we don't know what happened to these people. They ruled here for 1,000 years, and then all of a sudden they were here one day and gone the next. Now this, not only this tribe here in the United States, but also tribes around the world, it seemed like they were here one day and gone the next, just simply vanished with no trace. And so the Pimas call these people the Hohokam, which means the people who are gone, the people who are missing. Now, even when you and I move, we take our belongings with us, but yet the Hohokam didn't. Okay, they left all their belongings here, and they simply gone. Now, the archaeologists here want us to believe, well, they just simply migrated somewhere else, but it got too hot. Well, if that's the case, then where the hell did they go? There is no proof on any place on where they went. Okay, when you look at the rock art, when you examine the rock art, and you examine some of the tales that some of the stories that I've got from many of the Native Americans out here who understand what really happened to the Hohokam, who understand how holy and sacred this mountain is, South Mountain, they will tell you that the devil came from the east and took these people away. Some will say that a great meteor came down and took these people up. And the petroglyphs will describe is carving these flying serpents, these flying orbs, these flying phoenix lights, picking people up by their heads and carrying them off into the sky. Now, this is what I believe happened to the Hohokam, because this was a written record. These carvings, they didn't have video cameras back then. They had stone boulders to record something significant to remember in history, to tell their children on the special events that took place. This is the reason why we find glyphs on one side of the mountain, but we don't see glyphs on the other side of the mountain. It's because there's nothing that happened over there. It happened over here where the petroglyphs are being recorded at, where the petroglyphs are being found at. Now, when you look at the petroglyphs, you're not just supposed to look at the art. You're supposed to include the whole landscape in with the art, because the artist is trying to include the art, the landscape. He's telling you a story here. For instance, if you see a coyote and he's looking in a certain direction, you want to follow that coyote. You want to follow where he's looking at, and it'll take you to the next story, and then sometimes to the next tomb. You know, so I'm finding all these tombs, I'm understanding the stories out here, I'm understanding the art, but I'm also finding another type of art, a type of Mayan. I'm finding Mayan rock carvings out there. And it wasn't until about a year later, you know, because I'm finding the tombs, I'm finding the Mayans, I'm finding the sacrifice, okay? And, but, you know, the archaeologist, he's hush-hush about this whole situation. He's not telling you anything. You know, I've been on the news. I think I'm the only person who's ever got an archaeologist out to be on the news to talk about UFOs connected to the rock art in their city. I don't think no one has ever done that before, but I was able to do it. And, of course, you know, he's not going to agree with anything like that because here's the big story. Because what really happened to the whole what really are the Phoenix Lights, what really are the tombs concealed up here on the mountains goes way back. And in a sense, I understand now why the archaeologists and the government isn't talking about these things. Is because this is a scary thing, right? This is something kind of, you know, some of the Indians did, and some of the Native Americans that I've talked to. Sometimes they will shut up. They will not tell you anything. This is like a type of taboo. This is a secret thing. We're not supposed to see these things. We're not supposed to know that these things are here. What's really going on here is what led the downfall of the Hohokam, the people who first dealt with the Phoenix Lights. They were here one day, gone the next. They treated these Phoenix Lights. They treated these flying serpents. They treated these orbs in the sky as gods. And then all of a sudden, something happened, and they were taken away, vanished from civilization, just gone. Okay? So I'm finding all this information, and I'm like, dude. So I'm investigating South Mountain. I go into the Phoenix Library, and I go up to the government department. And I ask them, you know, give me all your files on South Mountain. They came out with this huge file. I opened it up. Holy cow. Boom. There it was. There was all the information. There it talks about Charles Holbrook, the first park ranger of South Mountain in the beginning of the 1930s to the end of the 1940s. He was the first park ranger here on South Mountain. And the Indians, the Native Americans, told Charles about the tombs, told them about the Mayans, told them about what happened to the people who were gone now. You know, they entrusted Charles, and he was out there actually protecting the tombs. Hopis say that we're in the fourth world. Okay, and we're about ready to enter the fifth. Okay, so at the beginning of the fourth world is when the Holocaust we're here, and they didn't know how to live. So these things came up out of the sand world, and they lost it. And some people would like to say that they were a type of lizard men. And they lost their tails. The stories go on to say that they lost their tails, and they taught the people how to survive. And in return, they worshiped these things as gods. And this went on for 1,000 years. This is how mankind was able to survive, was from help and guidance of these things in the sky. But actually, in fact, it led to their downfall. Okay? So when we look at the Sumerian text, when we look at the Anunnaki, okay, that really goes into a lot. There's a lot of carvings down here on South Mountain that kind of refer to the Anunnaki, kind of refer to some of the Babylonian text. But I tell you what, the most really what resembles what's really going on out here is the Bible. Okay, if you take religion out of the Bible, just throw religion out the door and look at it and interpret it as like a history book for the world, it tells you what these things are, man. It tells you in Genesis 6 that these things were cast down to earth. Okay, so the Bible has a lot of stuff has been left out of the Bible. But Mount Hermon, as the Bible describes, isn't the only mountain that these things were cast down at. That's just one mountain. There were other mountains around the world that these things were thrown upon, and Phoenix, Arizona, and South Mountain, and the existing mountains around Phoenix were part of the civilization where they were cast down at. So they were thrown here. They were thrown here out of heaven, and they were thrown here out of the sky. This is their home. They've always been here, okay? And so when you look at Genesis 6, it says that the Nephilim were here, the giants, okay? So when you look at the petroglyphs out here, it's depicting giants, and I found tombs that have been concealed with heavy stone boulders that weigh a few tons, and it's like how the Holocaust were able to pick these boulders up and place these boulders here is beyond me. So they had to have been somebody who was very powerful, very strong, possibly a giant, and that's what talks about out here, are the giants out here. So with the Mayans were here, and everybody came from all the nations to gather at South Mountain. South Mountain was a holy mountain, and word spread about all the gods that were coming and going from this valley here, and all the spirits. And so word took place, and so all the people from all over the land used to gather at South Mountain for trade and for worship. And, the story goes on, a handful of gold for a handful of corn. That doesn't sound like much, but that's the way the story goes. That's the way Holberg writes it in his tale. And he goes on to say that this went on for 1,000 years until, something happened. Now, I believe, because the story it's a little bit kind of confusing, but I have found the altars out there, sacrificing altars. And I think for some reason the sacrificing had stopped, and when the sacrificing stopped, that's when these things got upset. I mean, because it wasn't always a desert out here; it was like a tropical-like landscape during the Holcomb era. I mean, you can see evidence of the waterfalls on South Mountain. You can see the evidence of the streams, of the water. I mean, it wasn't all dried up like that until the sacrificing had stopped. And when that did, it upset the sun devils, the sky devils. It upset the Phoenix Lights. And then one day they came down and they took people away. They just took them up into the sky, never to return. Now the story goes on. Holberg writes in his journals, and you can find all this on my website. He writes that some were watching what was going on, and they hid in caves, and they were afraid. And when it was all over with, they knew that they messed up, that they shouldn't have stopped the sacrificing, and so they knew that they upset the gods. And so the chiefs ended up taking their own lives and taking out their hearts and putting them on the sacrificing table because they knew that it was wrong to stop the sacrifice. So all the people that witnessed what was going on here, they were afraid, and they vowed never to come back into the Valley of the Sun, never to come back into Phoenix, because this land was cursed. They knew that if they were going to continue to live in this land, that eventually they were going to have to go back to war with these spirits of the earth and sky. And that's exactly what the petroglyphs depict out here. I'm seeing petroglyphs of the Indians shooting arrows at flying serpents in the skies out here, flying orbs, shooting at the Phoenix Lights. And so they were afraid, and they vowed never to come into this valley. So they buried their gold. And the tales, Charles Holbrook said that the gold measured as high as the tallest saguaro cactus and as round as the sun. That there was massive amount of gold that was buried in the mountains here, and they sealed them all up. And they vowed never to come back into this valley, and they all went back to Mexico, never to return here. So for 400 years, nobody lived in Phoenix, Arizona. No, nobody lived in the Valley of the Sun. There were tribes on the outskirts of the valley that saw the lights, that saw the serpents, that saw the orbs, and they were afraid. They knew because, the last time the people dealt with those things, man, they got taken away. And that's exactly what they didn't want to happen, because this land was cursed. And it wasn't until later on, about 400 years later, when Jack came in and his people, and saw all the canal systems left from the Holcomb, and he saw like massive farmlands, and he's like, what a wonderful valley to start, cropping, to bring in our cows, to live in this valley again. You're gonna upset the spirits here. Something's gonna happen. You just have no idea what you're stepping into here. But of course, the white man didn't believe him, and so here we are today. And then we have this, 4, 5, 8 million people living in Phoenix, Arizona, and we're seeing the lights, and we're seeing the lights, and we're seeing the serpent, and we're seeing the orb. Oh my! What does that say to our future? Because you have to look at the past. You have to look at the past. To understand our future, you have to look at our past. And our past says that mankind were fooled. We're fooled into thinking that these Phoenix lights, that these things in the sky were God, and we were meant to worship them. But when things didn't go the way it was supposed to, they got taken away. Okay, was this a type of First Thessalonians? Was this a type of rapture that these priests want us to believe will take place in our future? Okay, was this a rapture that happened to the Holcomb? Could be, because it does say that these things came out of the sky and took these things up. In First Thessalonians say, we will be caught up to meet the Lord in the sky. Well, that's basically what had happened to the Holcomb, man. They were judged, they were taken up, they never came back. Okay? And so that's basically what we're seeing now today. In our skies, we see the lights, we see the prophecies. The prophecies are coming. And so we're at the end, I believe, we're at the end of the fourth world. And this is the reason why these things have not made contact with us yet, okay? They simply are watching, the watchers are watching them back. And, a lot of people, such as myself, are seeing them more than others. And I really think that it has a couple... there's no proven evidence of this, but just theories, that there could be some kind of bloodline going on throughout the generations, why some people see these things more than others. It could be, I had a motorcycle accident when I was 16. I died. I had an OBE. I had an out-of-body experience. Up on the roof, I was looking at the doctor's work on me. I got sucked back into my body. So maybe people who have died and come back might be closer to these things and might be able to see these things more. I don't know. There's a lot of theories out there that's going on that has been yet to proven yet, but
man, I love the very scary thing about the truth of this is that it is very taboo, and you mentioned that. It is very taboo. It's very true. It's very real. And these disappearances are extremely unique, much like the rapture. And it reminds me a lot of, this has happened throughout the West, as you've said. And Chaco Canyon, very similar thing, they're just gone. They just poof. And I love the sand world and what you mentioned about the sand world, because, what does Anunnaki mean? It's ant people. It has that, I guess it's basically letting us know that there is a connection to the underground or the underworld, at least this casting down to earth that you mentioned in Genesis 6. And I think the snake worship is such a big deal with this. The snake worship can be so, when you mentioned that the sacrifices stopped and that the gods got angry. It's all about perspective. And these disappearances, these tombs, and a lot of the Sumerian, the Anunnaki texts, like biblical text, a lot of this incorporates these same things. I wanted to get back to something, Jeff, that you mentioned earlier, which was the mountains and the ridge lines. And I agree with this, that whatever you want to call them, the sky people, the sun devils, the UFOs, they seem, at least in the areas I've been, to be attracted to, hover above, go along these mountains and ridge lines. Do you have any insight as to why that is?
Absolutely. It has, in my opinion, and watching these things and looking at the hotspots, it has everything to do with the fault line, with the energies. It has everything to do with tracking the seasons. They follow the seasons, like I mentioned earlier. Watching the mountain for so many years, I noticed that they were here 1 month, they were gone the next month, or they were gone one season, then they came back another season. They were heavy 1 month and they were light the other month. And so the next year when it repeated itself again, I knew that was the secret. That was a major secret on how to predict these things. Is they follow the seasons, they follow the sun. Because the Indians say when the sun gets in the right position in these doorways, it opens up the doors, and it's like a type of fusion effect. And these things are able to harness this energy and use it as like maybe a type of feeding, I guess. They're kind of feeding off this energy. That's the reason why they glow. That's why we see the lights. When they're over that power plant, boy, they were bright, they were shiny, they were absorbing that, they were sucking up that energy so bad, man, and this is the reason why, we see colors in them, and we see why they're so bright, and, sometimes, they're silver, and that's why a lot of people mistake them as crafts, because, their skin is like a type of metallic. And because of Hollywood and because of people selling movie tickets, trying to say, a craft went over Phoenix, trying to exploit what's really going on when they haven't really investigated anything, they just assume that this is a spaceship and that we're dealing with crafts out here, we're dealing with technology because that's all they can really understand, But if you go back to the biblical text tell you what these things are, and a lot of people don't. A lot of people just overlook this. They say, it's religion. Don't you start throwing religion at me, young man. Dude, but it's talking about it. Moses dealt with these things. Who the heck do you think Moses was following around in the sky for 40 years? It tells you that a pillar of cloud by day and a pillar of fire by night led the Israelites out of Egypt, and they followed a UFO for 40 years. Okay, and who was it that led the people into the promised land? It wasn't Moses. Moses, what happened to him? He got taken away on a mountain by a light. Was it a phoenix light? But it was a thing in the sky that brought the people into the promised land. They followed the UFO for 40 years. It's really neat too, because when you read the biblical text, it tells you that when Moses went into a tent, this thing came down from the sky and actually greeted Moses while he was in the tent. Come on, dude. There's other things in the Bible there that talk about the Anunnaki, that talk about the guy with the wings, all right? And what about Ezekiel and Seal and the 4 living eyes and the 4 creatures, okay? Are they saying spaceships? Are they saying craft? Because they were ships out there. They were sailing ships. There were ships on the sea, so if they would have said, I saw a ship in the sky, they would have said that. No, they call these things angels. They call these things the Spirit of the Lord. They call these things spirits. Okay, so it's not a ship, but a living being that we're dealing with. Some are good, some are bad.
Sucking up the energy, like you said, in the shapeshifter territory, what I like to call it, of Utah there, where a lot of shapeshifters and stuff are seen, these tend to, like you said, hover over the ridgelines with huge power lines, and man, do they ever love that energy. It seems like they just power up. And it's so true when people get, angry about talking religion. It's like, or anything. It's like, why do you think these individuals left such, extensive historical writings behind, much like the petroglyphs, pictographs, and such? These may well be like the best keys we have to understanding this, and to not be open to all of it, you close yourself off to the answers. So I think that's really cool that you haven't closed yourself off. You're following, various lines that are leading to the same answers. And Man, it's Jeff. You're such a wealth of knowledge and a blessing to so many out there. I wish we could talk all day. I really do, and I hope we talk again soon. Where can listeners and others follow your work and keep in touch with what you're doing?
The best way to get a hold of me and to see some of the sightings and some of the up and coming events. I have my own show. It's been down right now because my studio is under construction. So I'll be back up with my own Facebook show again. Hopefully next month. Hopefully we can get it all straightened out by then. But Facebook is the best way to get a hold of me. And from there you can find my website. You can find my website on there. And from there you can also find my book, The Phoenix Light, Petroglyphs in the Sky, Volume 1, True Stories, Myths, Legends, and UFOs over Phoenix. Now, this is 15 years of research into the Phoenix Light, into the lost history of Phoenix, Arizona, that has been brought, that I have uncovered, and it's colored photographs. It's colored photographs of the tombs, of the petroglyphs. It reads so the reader can understand it. If you can't come to the mountain, then I bring the mountain to you through all the documentations and the photographs in the book. This book has never been it's only one. This is a completely new, unique UFO book. It's not a normal UFO book. It is a book that talks about the true history of Phoenix that I've uncovered and what really happened to the Hohokam, what the Phoenix Lights really is. And this information hasn't been told in the last 80 years. So this is all new to people. And the best way to get a hold of me is the Facebook. And if you guys go out there and film something in the sky, please let me know, because let's not worry about the archaeologists telling us what's really going on, because they're going to mislead us. Let's not worry about it. It's up to us. It's up to me and you. It's up to the people out there in the audience to actually go out there and find the evidence for themselves. Just don't believe somebody that, that's on the radio, that's on TV, that's on Ancient Aliens, that is trying to sell you movies and tickets, for some craft going over Phoenix. Investigate for yourself, because that's exactly what I did. I went and I investigated for myself, and when I did, it opened up my eyes. It opened up a whole new chapter on what's really going on here on Earth. And when you really sit down and when you really investigate what's really going on here, you will find out this too, and you will find out the truth, because the truth will always be there. I'm thinking, hey, these things are here to help us. These things are a good thing, but once I actually understood, when I understood them, when I understood what the Phoenix Lights are, and when I understood about what the lost history of Phoenix, Arizona is, I totally went a 180 on this. And this is the reason why they don't want to tell you what UFOs really are, because it's a scary thing. It's a scary thing. So they're trying to mislead the public. This is why I don't do the Ancient Aliens TV series anymore. I won't do it because in my opinion, there's a lot of misleading information in that I just don't agree to. It's not evidence. It's not credible. So what is evidence, what is credible, is for you to go out there and the truth, check out the history. If you're seeing lights in your area, find out the history. Find out if the Native Americans, talk about, UFOs, sky spirits, spirits of the earth and sky. See if that person has petroglyphs on it with spiral.
Man, you are on point. You're a wealth of knowledge. I appreciate you coming on, Jeff. I hope we talk again soon, my man.
Awesome, brother. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jeff. Take care. All the best. Have a great day. Man, oh man, I can't say enough good things about Jeff. He's one of those guys that not only knows his stuff, but he's passionate about it. And he has so many of the same ideas that many of us have that spend a ton of time in the field. These realities can be augmented significantly by spending that amount of time in the field. And this guy's far from being an armchair researcher. He has hiked all over the place, captured some of the most amazing footage in the most unique locations, and definitely helped Jeff out. Look at his social media, look at his past, present, and his future videos coming out, and definitely pick up his book. It is a great book. If you want to keep up with everything Jeff Woolwine, go look on social media, Jeff Woolwine at Facebook. And his book is available in a lot of locations. I've seen it on Amazon, and I think you can find it where most quality booksellers have UFO books and the like. I hope to have him on soon. He's absolutely awesome. And even more than that, I hope to meet up with him soon and actually get out in the field with him. Something really interesting about his videos is that they are oftentimes in these locations that are energy hotspots. And that's really cool. He's perfectly kind of got this dynamic where he's one of the originals. He's connected something that should be connected and other people are ignoring. So do what you can. Definitely support Jeff Woolwine, and I hope we get him back soon. So on to the other unnecessaries, but necessary to keep the podcast going. I've got to do the shameless self-promotion, the pitch. The original outlaw of the airwaves has to do the hijacking a bit and hit you up for $1 or $2 if you can. If not, just keep doing what you're doing. But if you haven't gone to heroparanormal.com, definitely check it out. We have a very unique system of patronage, and it's very affordable compared to everyone else that I'm aware of. It's the most affordable, but you are able to get full archives for your effort. You know, we are all about supporting the underdog, supporting the little guy, and keeping the good stuff flowing. So we will absolutely keep you in the know of all things hyper-anomalous, paranormal, ufology, cryptozoology, and secret society as often as financially available and financially able. The timelines that I'm dealing with are tough. I've got a lot going on, but I will continue to do my best and I won't let you down. So don't let me down. If you have a chance, go to heroparanormal.com and support the Hyper-Anomalous Esoteric Research Organization podcast. If you're into other things weird, definitely check out the research project we have going on, and that is spacewolfresearch.com, something fun I do on the side. Until next time, guys, keep your eyes to the skies, feet on the ground, but don't forget to take a look around.
Come blast off in my time machine. Third eye feeling like an Evazine. Blast off, blast off, blast off, blast off. Come blast off in my time machine. Third eye feeling like an Evazine. Blast off, blast off.